Yeah. You already know I'm trained to go. It's about 8 o'clock for my favorite show. All the latest news on your radio. Had to start a wave, then I changed the flow. Y'all know who the best is, the Urban Collect.
I'll be like, you ready, Stefan? You ready, S?
You ready, Big S?
Right, you ready, S?
Like that? Okay.
Right, what's up? Hey, look at us, we live. All right, what's up, everybody? It is your First Lady, Miss Bernadine Truth, alongside...
It's your man, NIC.
Yes, and we are the Urban Collective Show, back at it with another episode. It is that time of our show where we get to present you all with a celebrity guest, an amazing individual who's doing phenomenal things in the greater Boston community. So I'm really excited to introduce you all to Conor. Conor runs Golden Deer Productions and is also a host of his own podcast called the Golden Hours Podcast. And NIC and I were guests on his podcast not too long ago, so we're really excited to have him in our hot seat and see where the conversation goes.
It's gonna be a hot seat, y'all. I'm just letting you know.
Hot seat.
I'm just hoping there's enough airtime for all of us to speak because we all like to talk.
No, there's only gonna be questions for you. Don't
worry.
Yeah. Conor, talk to the people. Tell the people who you are.
Well, let me
start
off by saying, because I'm a professional like Bernadine. Thank you for having me. I'll be very honest with you, this is like the most organized show I've seen. It was definitely a different story when you guys came to my show. It was probably like wires everywhere. You were tripping over stuff. I probably had Shirley like helping produce the show. But I run a big podcast, have a bunch of really cool people up on the show, and I throw big events in the city. And I'm a extremely hard worker, and I'm a good guy, and I got a fresh lineup.
Oh yeah.
Did you get a lineup for the show, or you already get a lineup?
I'll be honest, I'm like 6 days dusty right now. I've been trying to do like once a week. This kind of landed on a bad day for me.
I'm like that too. So my hair is short. Have you seen my hair out? I'm not sure.
Yeah. You didn't have the...
And so I'm always, I wrap my hair oftentimes because I just don't want to show it when it's growing in. I don't like the look too much, but I'll tell you, having short hair is a lot of work. People think it's not a lot of maintenance, but it is. Getting lineups all the time. I have to be in the barber weekly.
So do you get a straight blade when you do your buzz cut?
I don't know these terms.
Like do they come with like a single blade and like do your lines, or is it just clippers?
I think it depends on the barber. I think that they try different methods.
You don't have a go-to?
I have two go-tos because it depends on my schedule. So if I'm like back in Boston, like closer to home, I have one location, and if I'm closer to work and it's depending on those hours, then I have another barbershop that I go to.
You know, she's Miss Busy, so.
Yeah. But anyway, stop it, Conor. We asking you questions. Bringing it back. Thank you. Jesus, like, let me talk to y'all about yourselves. They know this anyway. Conor, so who are you outside of Golden Deer Productions?
Something that people don't know.
Right, don't know.
Well, I have always said I wanted to grow something big out of Boston, even when I wasn't even in the city. And so I've been noticing recently, it's weird how like long-term thoughts start to manifest things. And I'm pretty self-reflective, and I don't think I'm naturally extroverted, which is weird to a lot of people because I can talk to a lot of people. I think I'm pretty introverted. Other than that, I'm looking for a new shorty. And I can't wait to go to the West Indian Festival with you guys. It's going to be great.
You're looking for a new shorty, so you're going to go to the West Indian Festival to find her?
This was Shirley's idea. She says it's going to be life-changing, so I'm going to show up.
So is the plan to go to the West Indian Festival to find a shorty?
No, I'm just going to enjoy myself. But if a shorty does come by, it's a win-win, right?
Win-win, yes. So what's exciting for you regarding the West Indian Festival, other than a potential opportunity?
Well, you guys are gonna have to tell me how it works. So does it work by like the certain community goes, like a Trinidadian community, if I'm saying that right, and the Haitian community? Is that how it works in the?
So the whole idea is you have different floats. The floats are sections. Let me call it sections. So you have different sections. Each section, they start out, you have officials and people of the city that's there, mayor, all of that. They'll be up front, and then you'll have different organizations that have their own thing that they're trying to promote. So they'll walk around and they'll have banners and all of that. And then you start to get to the side where it's the actual festival. So when the festival happens, you have, Trinidadians, Barbados, Jamaicans, whatever it is. In Boston, the countries don't really do independent, they have different mask camps. And within the mask camp, mask is like masquerader.
Okay.
So they have different mask camps that sits there and does it. So each mask camp kind of represents, sometimes they represent one country, but most of the time it might be a mixture. So you might have people that's Trini, Jamaicans, Barbados, whatever, all in one. It doesn't matter. It depends on what type of music you like. So they try to play more music. So one will do reggae more, one will do soca, another one will do a different type of soca.
Well, dance hall.
There's dance hall also.
There's compa for the Haitian community.
Yeah, well,
Compa?
the Haiti truck doesn't have compa because compa you can't really do carnival to it. So they have more of what they call labodai and lala, which is like more like, labodai is like the Haitian version of rap that they do. They started a few years back, and then lala was kind of before where they used to just use instruments. Like literally use instruments and just make music, and then people just dance to it. So you have people who have horns, you have people that have bells, cowbells, all that. And they would have people that have drums that they'll beat on, all of it.
How do they keep it organized? I mean, I know you're part of the administrative,
Yeah, so basically, it's a lot of meetings. But
you already seem stressed, bro.
Yeah, it's a lot of meetings.
It's coming up, right?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks and no light. So
yeah,
it's a lot of meetings, and then there's Boston police, is everything, the whole city, the whole area shut down. So everybody is organized into their own group. So you get a ticket, so you do number 1, 2, 3 to 10 is 10 floats. So number 1 goes, they get about 20 minutes a head start, and then the next person goes. So there's a gap in between each, and then that group gets to go in. So the Haitian float were last this year, and because one of the reasons where
Are you pissed about that?
No, it's actually exciting to be last because
you
close it out. So there's a part where you get
tired by that point.
No.
You party like
You're excited.
10 hours straight.
But I think part of that has
Starting to scare me a little.
part of that has to do with the fact that I think Boston has a very prominent Haitian community.
Yeah.
And so you're able to see people come out from like Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, Hyde Park,
People come from out of
Roslindale,
state,
right, to
New
be part
Hampshire,
of
Connecticut, New
this
York even,
experience.
to come down and celebrate.
So definitely a beautiful celebration of culture.
Can I say, am I allowed to say Zoe? Is that okay? Like,
Yeah,
is it like, what's up, my Zoe?
Yeah, that's
All right, what's up, my Zoe? How are you, bro? just for the day. Just for the day.
For the day? All right, we'll let it pass. No?
She said, I'm mad you said
Connor,
that.
how would you identify ethnically?
White as hell.
That's racially, ethnically. Where would you say your family's from?
Okay, sorry, trying.
No.
I know I'm definitely very Irish, but I think most of my family is like 3-4 generations deep in Boston. And I think they had come here initially from Ireland.
Okay.
Both your parents, like your parents' side.
I'll be honest, I would love to do an ancestry test. Have you guys done them?
No,
I've debated that
I've heard
myself.
about it, yeah.
What if you find out some like terrible stuff?
What would be terrible? I think knowing where I came from is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But what if it's a total curveball?
It's okay. That's part
I
of my
actually would like
story.
that.
That's a
Exactly.
fact.
Yeah, I actually would like that because I know myself. I have Haitian and I have some Cuban in me.
Yeah.
Besides that, I would like to know what else. Like,
Well, and I think.
But what if it's not that at all?
I would love that because then I would stop identifying like, oh, I got Cuban in me. Oh, you have no Cuban at all.
You think you feel differently?
No.
Not particularly, because for my family, like I know on the maternal side, I have some Native American blood, and Haiti was colonized by the French, and so we have some of that in us too, and so it's just more solidifying what the percentage points would look like, and then just really being able to break that down. What about you? Would you be surprised? Like, what if
I would
came
be.
out?
I don't know. What I think. It'd be fun though. Like figure out where you really came from. I sometimes worry. Sorry, I should know this. I sometimes worry like I'll go back to Ireland and like I'll meet my distant relatives and they'll all be like alcoholics. That's one thing I worry about a little bit.
Why do you think that they'd all be alcoholics? Like, where's that thought coming from?
Well, that totally rattles through my family. A lot of mania in my family. So. And a lot of addictive personalities. So, I whoa, turned into Dr. Phil over here. But there's just there's a lot of addiction in my family, and so that was something I was pretty conscious of growing up.
So is that why you don't drink?
That's why I don't drink, why I don't smoke, and I'm just enough tapped, enough crazy where I think I can channel it into productive stuff.
That's very real, and I thank you for sharing that, because I think when we talk about a certain generational traumas, right, that impacts our families, there's always that one or two people who are like, listen, I recognize that this is like an epidemic, if you will, or a trend in the family, and I want to break that. Was there a defining moment for you, or what was the defining moment that made you realize, like, hey, I see this as a pattern in my family, and I don't want alcoholism to be part of my story?
It's the type of thing where I think a lot of people who come from a similar generation, their parents in Boston, like Irish Bostonians, are traditionally very addicted people. And so I think it was just something I kind of grew up around, with just like seeing that, okay, the booze can really get to you, it can really tear your family apart. Drugs can definitely be an escape, but it will totally destroy you. So I think that was something I realized early on. And then I think it's one of those things that when you figure this stuff out early in your life, you're just like, okay, I can see why this could totally be damaging.
Was there like a particular event that took place where you were like, yep, I'm definitely not touching this?
Well, it's glorified a lot in certain communities, so it's like if you booze a lot, it's a good thing. You know what I'm saying? It's just like part of the culture.
Right.
So there was never like, I just saw this person die, he overdrank, but it was more like, okay,
right,
this could totally.
It's not like an All Souls like Michael McDonald situation.
No.
But it's like around you enough where you're like, okay, like I see that this is like a pattern.
Exactly.
When you mentioned drugs, what kinds of drugs are you referring to?
I definitely grew up around a lot of like pill addiction.
Okay.
Whoa. Prescription pills, I definitely saw a lot. Again, I kind of got a good mix growing up. I don't want to come across like I grew up in a household where there was all this like pill addiction, but I just was around it. Yeah.
Well, I'm like, that's a reality for some.
I know, but I don't want to draw it up like I'm a massive victim here, because I'm not. Like, my parents are both very ambitious and driven people, but I've had family members and I've been around enough to know that, like, okay, big Boachie, you gotta watch it, man.
Do you all talk about, I'm curious, do you all talk about the opioid epidemic, and like, is that something that you feel like is prevalent in your family dynamic when you talk about addiction to pills, or is that not for you?
No, I've never really had like a heroin overdose in my family. I know tons of people who have and have gone through it, but never in my family personally.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's real.
So I want to go back a little bit, and when you were...
Am I doing okay?
Yeah,
I'm trying to be introspective.
No, I appreciate it.
When you were young, high school and everything like that, what did you want to be? What did you want to do?
I want to get all the shorties.
So it was just about girls and everything?
No, not at all. I don't know. I've always been very social. Like, I went class clown in high school.
Gotcha.
And most people would say I was pretty funny, but I've always been very driven. And so my goals change a lot.
Okay.
You know, back then I might have said I wanted to be like a famous sports broadcaster. Okay. But they shift a lot. But it was somewhere around when I was 16 or 17 where I knew, like, okay, at some point I will go to New York or LA, but first I want to do something very substantial in Boston.
Gotcha. Okay. So you don't plan on staying here forever then? That means, what's your timeline? Like, are you looking at the next 1 to 2 years, 5 years?
Absolutely not. No. I say, like, okay, when I'm on some boss talk and I feel like I've actually made a real impact in the city is when I'll explore it. But I'm gonna be here for a long time, putting in work.
So what would you say is real impact in the city? Like, what does real impact look like for you?
It's interesting because I like internalizing a lot of my dreams, because I sometimes don't like telling people. Nothing against you guys. I just like keeping it in. But I know that I want to at least show people and break the stigma that you can't start your own thing out of Boston, and you have to go other places, because I'm totally sick of hearing it. People just aren't doing enough.
When you say your own thing, what do you mean by your own thing? You mean, like, because I mean, there's a lot of successful people that comes out of Boston. So is it more the art side, or what is it? Well,
here's a question for you guys: How many young creatives in the city do you know feel like they have a real opportunity to be successful without leaving?
Without leaving?
Not that many.
I know a few. I know several. I think that I wouldn't disagree with you. That
well, define your level of success, I would say, because
big wins.
I mean, I think I know a few. Like, I really do. I think that There are a lot of people in Boston who really feel like Boston is their home, it's their foundation, it's where they want to give back to, it's where they want to invest in. Does that mean that they're not debating leaving it or like going elsewhere to do their work? I think it's similar to you, right? Oh, I want to make it to a particular point where I've known I've made impact in Boston and then progress. But I think that that's just part of the game, right? Like you have a lot of people in Atlanta, they'll go to LA, they'll go to New York, and then people in New York will go to LA and they'll go to Atlanta, you know, and come to Boston. I think that, I think if we were having this conversation personally, this is Bernadine's opinion, if we were having this conversation 7 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago, I think you'd see a lot less people actually think like Boston is their central hub to get things started. I think there's been a generational shift, right?
You guys were the first ones that had told me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys would say you guys had told me on when you came on my show that you had seen it shift a bunch.
Yeah, yeah, it has.
It
Trust
has.
me, it has.
You know, I think I see, and I see you can speak for yourself, but I see a lot of people in the fashion industry, a lot of people in the blogging world, a lot of people in
People collaborate
speaking,
more. A lot
right?
more.
People in music, people in entertainment, people in comedy, people in spoken word.
Like
People-
back then, it was.
I know you were like it was a gang war back
Yeah,
then.
no, like literally, it was like cities versus. It was Roxbury versus Dorchester versus Mattapan. So literally, you would be in your block, you would rep your block. That's why you had Boston had a lot of block gangs. So you had, you know, this guy's from Seaver Street over here, this guy from this area, a lot of different gangs.
Sounds like West Side
formed.
Story.
Yeah, but that's literally what it was like though, because people wouldn't really interact with each other. Like it would be rare that I would sit there. I'm from Mattapan, grew up, raised in Mattapan, and
You were the famous DJ.
not that, but we didn't really interact with that many other outside people. Like we'll go to other cities, but I barely went to Roxbury. And I had a lot of friends that was from Roxbury, school and everything, but events and everything like that, but I went to Roxbury. We really like stayed home. It was Mattapan all day, ride or die, Mattapan. And as we got older, I was like, why are we not interacting with each other? This makes no sense. We're in the same
And
city.
people are changing. So let me ask you, Connor, what places have you been in that
Yeah.
is really diverse and that has exposed you to the culture of Boston and the diversity here?
So when I was throwing a show at the Middle East. I was telling Shirley when we were outside. So I threw a show at the Middle East last summer. It was about this time, and I was like, all right, I gotta sell as many tickets as I can because this is gonna take a lot to sell out. So I was bouncing in between all these neighborhoods, hand selling tickets
Okay.
to anybody, right? I just wanted to sell it out. I wanted to throw like just a Boston show with all Boston artists, and so I was bouncing in between. Like I was in Roxbury, I was in Dorchester, I was in Mattapan, I was in Neponset, and I was just going to people's house selling them tickets. And then it was at my show when someone had come up to me, and there were a lot of black people, there were a lot of Spanish people, there were a lot of white people. They were like, yo, this is the first time we've ever seen a crowd like this. This is someone at the Middle East, like what do you do? Like what's going on? And that was the first time I realized it was kind of weird to see like a collaboration between like a white community and a black community at an event in Boston specifically.
What have you done since that event last summer?
Done a lot. I had you guys on my show, right?
For two people. I love it. I'm not knocking it though, because I do think we're pretty amazing. But what else? You know,
I threw
what do you do?
a big influencer event. Stefan was there.
Yes, that was a great event. Yeah, there was a lot of different people there too. So yeah.
You guys were cool people, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You got a new t-shirt.
Got a t-shirt. Yeah, I met a lot of different people that at the time that I didn't even know from throughout the city, different artists that was there. So yeah, it was actually pretty nice. I liked it.
And then I had thrown the Mass Cast, which I wish you were at.
I know.
Where were you?
I don't know what was happening that particular date, but it
She
all
was-
depends on
she
our
was
schedule.
sleep- she was sleeping.
Where was I?
You were-
Oh, I was in Canada. Yeah, I saw
she was
somebody.
partying.
Yeah.
She was
I
partying.
was just like, no, we partying,
partying.
but it was a friend's birthday, and it was a milestone birthday, so we surprised him on a trip to Montreal.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Question, what are you guys drinking today? What is this?
I'm drinking water.
Yeah, okay.
Water and some sangria. Water and sangria. Connor, you're really good at like being like, let me divert this conversation, and I'll bring it back to you
Go
because you're
ahead.
our guest of honor.
I just want to make sure we're having fun, man.
No,
Shirley, are
but-
you having fun?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But I wanted to pick your brain a little bit more, right? So like you talked about, you want to make a major impact in Boston.
Yes.
You put on an event where you were able to
Do you think I
see.
can do it?
I don't see why not. I think anybody can do
I'll
it
make it done.
so long as they put their mind to it.
Exactly.
I think it's just being able to peel back the layers, right, and really be able to understand like what's going on there. So what are some of your thoughts as far as like why you think Boston experiences its challenges with racial diversity and being able to have that representation in the same space?
I don't know. I just haven't. experienced personally the friction of racial diversity. I just know that at my events, there's a lot of black people and there's a lot of white people, and people are like, dude, this is weird. This doesn't normally happen in the city. So I have not been exposed to it where it's been totally segregated. Personally, I just know when people come to my events, like, damn, there's a lot of white people here, damn, there's a lot of black people here. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Do you ever have these conversations with people when they attend to pick their brain to understand what's going on, to figure out how you can implement, you know, changes or support and more opportunities for the future as you're looking to grow?
See, it's interesting because I was on show last night. He was asking me the same thing. He's like, what would you tell other white people to do a better job of interacting with black people and vice versa? And I was like, to be honest with you, I don't actually know.
You don't know?
Just like be yourself and like just be a human.
So
I don't know. Do you know?
One thing I did wanted to ask you is, so I know last time.
Did I answer your question?
No, so I'm kidding. Yeah, that was
Okay.
I
just want to make sure I'm coming through with some good answers.
No, I definitely wanted to ask you. So, you love hip hop music, anything like this? Is there anything outside other types of music genres or anything like that you like besides hip hop and R&B? I don't know if you like R&B.
What was it? Did you say pompa?
No, I said besides hip hop.
I know. What was the Haitian rap?
Oh, compa. Oh no, Labodai.
Compa.
Labodai is the
Yeah, go ahead. How do you say it?
Labodai.
Labodai.
No, La, like R-A.
Brabodai.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go with that.
But yeah, is there anything outside of hip hop that you like listening to as far as your personal taste in music or
Let me
anything?
see what I've been listening to recently. If that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Pull it up.
Look my first
Top
thing.
3 songs.
I had Burna Boy. I just downloaded his album.
Okay.
Hey, have you listened to it?
Yeah, Destiny's unbelievable.
Okay.
Have
You
you guys
listen
heard
to his
Destiny?
last
That's a good
album
song,
too.
yeah.
His last album is good. This one's good,
I
but the
was
last
listening to it.
album before that, download
Destiny's
that.
a song I like a lot. Burna Boy, I
Destiny.
mean Afro beats, African music in general.
I really like this album a lot. And then next to that, I have Lil Uzi Vert.
I'm not a big Uzi person, but
Yeah.
I get it. I'm more the old school, so yeah, I can't take it sometimes. So, but he's definitely a good artist.
He's swag. I got Trippie Red on here. I have the new Drake. It's not new, but it's the old pack, and that's forever the go to me. I got Big Sean. I have Chance. I got Big Sean.
What you think about the Ross?
I loved it.
Yeah. What's your favorite
Are you
song?
talking about Port of Miami?
Yeah, the 2.
I
Yeah.
haven't heard it 3 yet. I was just talking about Gold Roses.
Oh, okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
Did you like that?
Listen to you. I mean, I haven't listened. I'm not really big on rap as much.
You don't like it?
Not really a fan of rap, but I do love. I'm an old school head, so I'm like, give me old school R&B, give me Casey
She's like-
JoJo,
she's
give
like,
me
I listen to
Jagged Edge,
Little
give me
Shy.
Shy.
Her rap is common.
Avant,
What's your
like,
favorite Usher song?
I don't even know. Actually, I like several of his songs.
All right, give me one.
One is just like nice and slow.
Oh, you're a real
I'm
fan.
like I really confessions, right? So I mean, it
Let
goes,
it burn, let it burn.
all of that. But how did you get into, an appreciation? Like, what would you say led you into appreciating
Black music?
Yeah.
It's interesting. It shows asked me the same question. So there was a METCO program
Okay.
where I went to school in Lincoln, and it had a big METCO program. And I had an older friend. I had a friend who had older brothers who always had kids from the METCO program stay at his house. This is when I was young. I was in like 1st, 2nd grade, right? So I was like, all right, that was always really cool. So starting in like 3rd grade, I'd always invite my METCO friends over. And so over time, what had happened is my METCO friends would stay over for like the full week. So like school nights, we'd be having sleepovers at my house every night, wake up, go to school. And so now I look back, like that was probably kind of defining why I'm comfortable with Black people. And it probably rubbed off on me a little bit, but I also think like Black people make really great music too.
Do you ever feel have there ever been moments, or can you speak on any moments where you felt uncomfortable being a white person in predominantly Black spaces?
I'm trying to think. To be honest, I felt wildly comfortable walking through Fields Corner right now.
Yeah, Fields Corner's not the same old Fields Corner anymore.
I mean, but I
I guess it's changed a lot.
want to make you pause on that one, and I think though, because I'm like, it's not just about violence and intimidation, right?
No, I'm not talking about
Our
violence
Black
part.
culture.
Even with the people.
Oh no, I
that's
didn't
around.
even mean it. I'm
No,
not a
because
danger
he's just
to-
because he was just like, it's not the same
I
anymore.
was,
but
yeah, I
I'm
wasn't
like,
bringing up the violence
no.
part. I was just
Yeah.
talking about Fields Corner's not the same. Like even when you look outside, the people that's walking around here, the businesses around here are different.
There's a
from
big
5 years
Asian
ago.
community out here too, right?
Yeah, that's way bigger
Way
than it used to be
different.
about 5 years ago.
Yeah, For sure.
What, it's much more Asian?
Yeah.
Now, as far as the demographics of Boston, I think that, you know, Boston is very diverse but very segregated. And so I think you can travel around Dorchester, which is where we are right now, and you'll see certain pockets, right, where you're like, okay, this is where you'll see predominantly Asians, the Asian community. This is where you'll see predominantly like Haitians or Caribbeans. This is where you'll see predominantly like African Americans, although they might identify as Black, right? It's just a different ethnic origin.
Why does it shift? Like what? Like why is it newly Asian here? Why does that happen?
Why do you think it happens?
I have no idea. I'm asking you.
I would assess it off of, and I'm not the end-all be-all responder for this, but you know, you talk about economics, you talk about access, you talk about you know, opportunities to invest in marketing in your market, right? So like you see a lot of the restaurants, mom and pop shops still, but it's an affordability, it's a legacy conversation. You know, I think Cocoa Leaf has been around for quite some time now, and I think that that's probably one of the more unique restaurants that you have here.
What is
like,
that, Asian restaurant?
It's an Asian restaurant. But
How
I would
is it?
say like
Good?
more like, yeah, and I think it has like more like appetizers, pastries, like lighthearted food.
Good place to
you know,
take someone on a date.
Listen, you trying to get like
I'm just
big
wondering.
time.
After the West Indian Festival,
Bring
He's
it down.
like,
I have to go into
everything
this.
that comes out, I'm trying to get
I gotta-
shorty.
I gotta get into
get
this.
wiped up.
Wait, hold on, Bernie.
Boot
So
up.
have you ever been with a Black girl?
half Black.
Half Black? Okay. So,
That's
like,
good.
mix, what was she mixed with? Like, Black and...
Spanish.
Spanish? Okay. Okay. So,
Go ahead,
fully
Connor.
Black there.
Oh.
Whoa.
Okay. Bernadine and I know we were talking when we left the show from last time. We talked about the festival and everything like that. And she was like, "Is he like one of those people that's like, what was it, that are attractive to? What's it? Have like a fetish?
An
No.
attraction to Black culture.
Yeah, to Black. Yeah, but not Black culture. But like, you know how like you have certain guys that be like, oh yeah, I just want to be with a Black woman, and you're like, why? You're like, I just like a Black woman, but they can't really tell you why. That's why I was like, let me ask him if he's ever been with a Black woman, and then to see, okay, was it because you were attracted to the person, or was it like a
Right, like how did that come
fetish
out?
thing?
What was that
feels
like? Was she a classmate? Was she a friend?
Yeah.
I think that was just college.
Oh, college.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Nice.
You date around college, you know, that's what happened.
I don't think I personally can vouch that I don't think I have a fetish for any particular ethnicity. That's just the truth.
So it doesn't matter to you what the person is, you're just
No.
attracted to their vibe and whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So would you actually date like a Black woman? There's a lot of people that says, you know, that like where you just messing around with the person and no one's actually dating.
No, I was not dating.
You were not. Okay, so would you actually date? And when I mean date, like have a full-fledged relationship with that person?
Bring her
I
home
would-
to meet the family.
We'd have to try to see if it worked, right?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know because I haven't.
But you're not against it.
No,
basically.
absolutely not.
What would your family? What would you like? Have you ever spoken about race in your family?
I think
racial
they would be
dynamics?
like, "This is different."
I think I met your dad. Your dad, I think, would be from him. He seemed like he was cool with. Like,
Oh yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
But I know you said you're Irish.
Let
so what
him
about
answer,
the cousins?
NIC. What would your parents? What would your family and community say?
I think-
What would their initial reactions be if you were
I-
like, "This is like my chocolate brown queen. I'm bringing her home."
I think
Shaquita.
if she was cool, if she was cool, it'd be cool. I think initially they'd probably be like, "Well, this is a curveball. This is different."
Is anybody in your family, in your immediate or distant family, in an interracial relationship?
Yes, I have a cousin who has a Black boyfriend. She's white, and I have another cousin who has an Asian wife.
Nice. And so the family's
Totally
reactions.
cool. Janice and Stacy.
Hey, go ahead, Janice and Stacy. Y'all better tune into the Urban
Shout
Collective
out
show
to
because you're supporting.
We'll get you some Urban Collective shirts.
Hey,
Which you
I
guys are
love
taxing
that.
it, right?
What?
What was it?
You guys are taxing on the shirts.
I mean,
right?
everybody's taxing on clothes now. Do you all know that's about to come? They're about to start taxing on clothes.
Yeah.
Did you all know that?
Hey, you
I
gotta
did
make that
not.
money.
I'm
when you run
sad.
for office,
The
you better
gov-
switch
exactly,
that.
the gov-
Switch it up. I
The
don't know. I
government.
don't even know if they'll let me make that happen.
Let me say this live on air though. I'm gonna vote for Bernadine because she's
Yeah.
the wall. Yeah, 'cause I know it's
Thank you.
coming soon.
Now, I don't know if it's soon, but maybe.
I think you'd be great at it.
So,
Thank you, Connor.
what's
I
your goal
appreciate
for
that.
the show
Appreciate it.
for the
I
next
do.
few years? Like, what's for the next 3 to 5 years for your show?
I have a crazy project.
Mm.
I can tell you this much. I have a crazy project that I'm gonna get done in the next 3 years. That's gonna be really big in the city.
Okay.
I don't want to say it before
Of
it
course not.
happens
Yeah.
because I don't want to give it away too much. But that for me is kind of like that's what I want to get done. It's
And
this mystery project.
It's that's like a 3-year mark, so legitimate like in 3 years, or is it?
It's gonna be
like
within
in 2
the
years,
next 3 years.
3 years. Okay, awesome.
And that's kind of like for me where everything's mapping.
Mhm.
Okay.
But I don't want to give it away because I care so much about it.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
that's
gonna
fine.
stay
That's,
tuned.
and to be honest, that's kind of why I beat around some of the dream questions, just because I
Okay.
care so deeply about getting it done. I just don't want to jinx it.
Do you feel like speaking about it does jinx it? Like, where does that fear come from?
No, I'm just so crazy about getting it done, man. I just don't want it.
But
Right.
some
Let's
people say when you
talk
put it out
more
there,
action.
you know what happens.
I know, but if I internalize it, I'll think
That's real. How did Golden Deer Productions come to play?
Yeah.
And like, what are like, and then from Golden Deer Productions, the Golden Hours podcast. So what was that epiphany introductory like?
Did I tell you guys my story last time about why GDP started? Was that on your podcast?
You told us about the
Yeah.
name, how you got the name.
Yeah,
And the
okay.
deer.
Yeah, okay. So we've
So
been
we
over
got
that with the deer.
But yeah.
You roll your eyes a little bit.
Tell
Don't worry about it.
tell the collective. Tell the
That's
collective.
pretty gruesome, huh?
No, yeah.
So
This man over here killing animals.
yeah,
Right.
Not purposely. I had started up GDP, obviously based off the fact that we had started the logo for my YouTube page, Coach Connie, and then I had hit the deer on the highway. His name is Derek the Deer. He's like, he's right here on my chest. Not in heaven if we're going sales mode. He's living and he's fine.
Okay.
But the first Golden Deer production I actually did is I filmed a wedding. I was like trying to make some bucks. I gotta be honest, the wedding video was so bad.
Oh wow.
I should refund them fully. It was terrible.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, I did a terrible job. I think about it all the time. I did such a bad job.
That's like the worst thing to
I know.
mess up. Okay.
Oh man, I don't know how to get in contact with them. I'll give them everything. But I then I was kind of done doing YouTube videos and I wanted to challenge myself, so I made a short film at school called The Adventures of Adderall Boy. And so I was coming off the heels of, I was pretty addicted to Adderall. Back onto the Know Your Truth, Speak Your Truth.
That's it, talk about
I was
it.
pretty heavily addicted to it, man. It was taking it a lot,
Yeah.
just because it was kind of like give me the skill set to finally sit down and get stuff
To
done.
focus.
And so I totally
You said this was in college?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it totally isolated me for a couple, like 6-7 months, where I was just very antisocial. And so I tried to flip it, and I made a film called The Adventures of Adderall Boy. So kid takes Adderall, turns into a superhero. It was comedic, and it ended up winning a couple pretty big film festivals.
Okay.
So that was at school, and then so that was the first like Golden Deer production, and then I started directing my own commercials for apparel.
Okay.
And then I got a little bored of that, so then we started to throw on big events, and now I'm a podcast host, and now I'm sitting with the collective, spilling my soul, man.
How many podcasts have you had on your show?
Ooh, good question. Well, are we counting the Masscast?
Sure.
So who do we have there? We had NIC
Celeste,
slanging
we
it.
had show, so it's lit.
I've had Celeste up. She's great.
Yeah, I love Celeste.
You
Shout out to
guys
Celeste.
should run your own show. You and Celeste.
I love her. I was actually a guest on her show before.
Yeah, she's great.
I love her. She's
Yeah,
amazing.
it'll be like a 5-hour podcast with Bernadine.
What
Actually, the one I was on wasn't that long.
No, I said if you guys had your own show.
Oh, well, we would give life advice.
Yeah.
We'd save
Call it the
more
half-day
lives.
show.
Half-day show. I like that. Half-day show. Because you spending half the day with us.
Exactly.
You know, I love
Literally.
that. Literally, right.
But no, it's great though, honestly. Like, the best thing about the podcast is I've gotten to meet so many dope people. Like, real talk. Like, this is, if I hadn't started it, I probably would have never been in contact with you guys. And it's like, you guys run a really sick show. You know what I'm saying? You guys have your own brand. Everything's all like really well laid out. We had Show and Sam up. They're obviously crazy. They were calling me, I went on It's Lit and they kept calling me a colonizer. I was like, what am I supposed to say to this?
I was dying.
Did you listen to the episode? I was like, what am I supposed to say to that?
But that's how they are, though. That's why I show it Sam.
I told you already.
Sam likes to push people's buttons
But
on
I already
purpose.
told you, I was just like, you take the comment, you reflect
I did.
on
I thought-
it,
did
and
I
you think
skip
about your
over one?
responsibilities.
Yeah, he was good. He was good.
So what did you make of that comment since then? What has being a colonizer mean to you, and how are you
Well, I
not
watched
being a
Black
colonizer?
Panther and I got it after he said it. That's what it's from, Black Panther. Right?
It's no.
Is that what
It's not from Black
It's
Panther,
life.
but it just.
Listen, Connor.
No, but that's why he thought it was funny, because it was trendy to call it, because they were calling all the white people in Black Panther.
Yeah, that movie
I
kind of like
see.
That's
made
what
it
coined it.
resurfaced. Yeah,
I know
I
that.
see.
That's why he was
Term.
calling
Okay,
it.
I was just like, no.
I get what the
Like,
colonization
This is
is.
in our history. This is in our foundation.
Also, other good podcasts. Let's shout out Amir Max.
Yes.
I was just
yeah,
on his.
man. He's doing real well. I've been listening to his show, man. Shout out to him.
Young Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
He
I
did
don't
good.
know who's young
he
Stephen
did,
A. Smith.
I
he
just
did
up on the
an
show.
impersonation of Stephen A. Smith, which was really, really well at the Mass Cast. It was real
Nice.
good.
And then Liam from the WWE podcast. You guys met Liam, right?
Yeah, I've been listening to his podcast, but I'm not a big WWE person, so sorry, bro.
That's cool though.
Sorry,
That's
bro.
awesome. So you've had quite a few podcasts. When you don't have on your show, when you don't
The
have
Vault was there.
Oh, Vault. Yep, C. Hayes.
when you don't have guests on your show, what does your typical episode look like, feel like, sound like?
What, with just me?
Mhm.
I've never done it.
Okay. So all
For
of
sure.
your episodes focus on having a guest
Yes.
on it. And how often do you air your show?
I drop minimum 2 episodes a week.
2 episodes a week.
Nice.
Sometimes 3.
Okay.
And if I'm going crazy, 4.
Really?
Have you ever dropped 4 in a
I
week?
did, yeah.
I was wondering, because I was like, how do you get up to a show 100 something already? Like,
Smooth fast, man.
And how long have you been in
okay.
business?
The podcast has been up for 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah, 'cause I
You've
was
already
like-
gained so much traction.
Yeah.
What do you feel? What would you say makes a successful podcast? If you were to give people some magic words and be like, listen, if you're trying to create a successful podcast, these are your dues.
Well, I think it's tough to gauge what a successful podcast is for anybody in Boston, just because we haven't really. I don't think any of us have really covered the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? My show is not fully monetized yet. I think that's a goal most of us want to get to. Is like,
Of course.
every time we air an episode, let's make some
Yeah.
money. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I think one thing that's really dope about it is like you got to be totally authentic.
Mm-hmm.
It like forces you. Like you can't fake it up here. The camera
No.
runs for an hour.
Have to be you all the time.
I know, and you have sales in you too, don't you?
Yeah,
So you know
can't-
sometimes
you
it's
can't
like, oh, I
bullshit
don't want to
for-
do this.
Yeah, you can't bullshit for an hour. After sometimes, and people like hold you accountable too.
Right.
Like I'll be in the street and people start talking to me like, yeah, I heard this. I'm like, oh yeah, oh shit, okay, yeah.
I know.
You
It's
gotta
scary.
get to the business.
Like I'll forget. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, in this episode. Yeah, okay, let me bring it back.
Yeah, do you guys ever get nervous about talking about stuff and then it coming back to bite you in the ass later?
No, it's who I am. Me personally, it's who I am. So if you don't like what I'm saying, it's
I say,
Well,
I
and
say
I see
something.
with that.
yeah, that's just me.
For me, there have been moments where I wouldn't say it, but I definitely do tread carefully because I think it's not just about what I'm doing today. It's like what I'm looking to do later. And so I think that we live in a world where your supporters will always be your supporters and your haters will be your haters, right?
Yep.
And so I think that even in the most positive of lenses, somebody can take what you're saying and flip it. And so I always want to be aware of that. And I, to the best of my ability, would like to be ahead of these kinds of conversations and interpretations. And so I wouldn't say it makes me shy away from what I'm saying, but I will say it certainly does impact how I communicate it and how I articulate it, because I want to be able to always know my truth, speak my truth, and stand by what I say what I mean, and mean what I say. And that also means, right, being prepared to deal with potential backlash, however that may look, right?
Yeah,
So.
see, that's one thing I totally respect that, because like I am definitely political on my show. There's like things, I mean, I'm a human too. I feel certain ways about things, but I just never want to ever burn a bridge on my show. So I just like, you know, sometimes I could go negative, but or just be a lot more upfront about the way I feel, but I don't. So I respect you, man.
Yeah.
So do you actually? So with you saying you get political and everything, do you actually sometimes go against somebody that's on the show, and do you stand firm, or do you just like kind of bend and be like, all right, whatever?
Oh, if there's an argument?
Yeah.
No, there's been like 4 arguments on the show, which are pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
You can ask, well, Mike and Pod Thoughts is one of my friends, but we were talking about work-life balance, and I was like, dude, if I want to work 90 hours a week, I can work 90 hours a week. He's like, 90 hours! 90 hours! And then I've had some disputes and spats, but...
I mean, it comes with the territory, I think. What would you say are some non-negotiables for you? As you say, you're trying to be political and not touch on or go there with certain conversations. What are some of those topics that you just don't want to
Well,
touch?
I'll just never say, like, I hate someone, I can't stand the way they run their business, I think they're unprofessional. I'll, like, never say something like that. You know what I'm saying?
So even if you don't like someone,
I won't say it on air.
So what would you
Okay.
say?
I would say, hey, what are you drinking today?
Okay, so anytime we change the topic.
No, it's not
that's
any
not
time
what you
I-
wanna do. I mean, I'm trying to understand what your dynamics are, what your approach
but
is.
it's
Our
not-
listeners learn from people.
And
So
it's not any time I
what are your
change the
strategies?
topic, but it's like I just don't want to come up, right? Let's say me and Scorpio, I got a beef with Scorpio Spice,
all right.
Mm,
and I see it's like, hey, what do you think about Scorpio Spice?
mm.
I'd be like, honestly, she's incredibly driven, and I'm glad you guys got a great team together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's something I would
Keep it
say.
PG.
Yeah, keep it right. Keep it surface level.
That's good.
I
Right.
just want to be a positive guy.
That's it. Okay.
We never got beef. I'm scared of you. But we never got beef.
That's why he has no beef, because he's scared. It's not because you're cool. No.
Well, Shirley told me outside she wants to work for the FBI.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's crazy.
who's to say she doesn't work for them now?
Exactly.
It's a fact. I'm probably being
You
audited.
never
That's
know.
what's going
You
on.
never know. You
I'm
never
trapped.
know.
You guys know I'm connected.
Irish.
But
right
speaking
here.
of connections, seriously though, of connections, do you feel like you're able to make it in this industry based off of where you come from and your access points to people in the industry? Do you feel like your family's success has played a role in your opportunities at all?
One thing, what really, that's pause, but can I keep talking?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
keep talking.
One thing that really is something that gets me a lot is that I have two parents who are not wealthy but are successful. My mom she manages people's money, and my dad is the president of a union. And so they're both very hardworking and successful, but I'm very prideful in the fact that I've done everything on my own. And so, well, it's the truth. And I'm like, I'm stubborn sometimes because like I could very easily go to my parents and say, hey, like, let me get a $5,000 loan, something like that. Like that is something I could do. But yeah, go ahead. If your sales pitch is good, they might. I don't know. but I'm just really prideful about the work I put in over time, and so I'll never do it.
It's amazing.
That's good.
And are they what are their thoughts about what you're
They
doing with
think
the
I'm totally
podcast?
nuts.
Really?
Oh yeah.
What's
They're
your
supportive.
what's
they're
the average
supportive.
conversation like with Conor when he's like, yo, so I have these people on my show, and they're like, what is this show?
I think my mom doesn't really understand it,
Mhm.
you know, because I just move very fast, so it's hard to just like keep up with what's going on. And I think my father just thinks I've had a bunch of crazy people up on my show.
Why does he think they're crazy?
I mean, I
Does he
think-
listen to the episodes?
No, he'll probably see some pictures or something,
Okay.
and you know what I'm saying. He's a very social guy, so
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
cool
so-
when I met him. He was real cool. We were talking for a few minutes.
The world of podcasting.
So definitely always like to
It's a
end the
great
show.
I had a blast.
Thank you for coming on, man.
How'd I
Thank
do?
you.
Did I do okay,
You did
Charlotte?
good. You did
you
well.
did good. I'm like, let
Give me
people know
corporate
who
shake,
you are.
corporate.
Let the
PC.
collective
Bernadine
know.
for office.
No,
Oh,
I
God.
don't know. We'll
Let
see.
the collective know where they can follow you. How can
Oh,
they can
whoa,
listen to your
whoa,
show.
whoa.
Yes, always
Wait.
have to be supportive.
Wait,
Yeah.
we did this on my show.
Uh-oh.
I came back with the mass pack, yes sir.
Look at these.
Well, here I lighten up.
Then I'm like,
The collective, who's ready? So, we got the classic ash gray mass pack. Classic. So this is NIC.
Mm-hmm.
You and Shirley on Netflix and chill type night. You know what I'm saying? and you guys are really just doing your thing. You know what I'm
Your
saying?
Netflix, right?
We'll-
do
we'll
one
do-
thing.
we'll-
One thing, Connor. Don't be PC.
Well,
Right,
that
what
you,
thing?
you're choosing movies.
And different moves.
We got two matching classic ash
matching?
gray.
Oh, how cute.
And then
How you gonna do with the matching?
Because it's twins. What do you mean?
And then listen, I was gonna call this.
I hate matching with my wife.
I was gonna call this the
Okay.
aquatic.
He's lying. I heard about it.
Whatever.
This shirt's actually hard,
Thank you, man.
for
It's
sure.
dope.
It's similar color palette. But let me go back to sales mode.
Go for it. Sales pitch.
So I was gonna call this aquatic blue, but I think I'm gonna call it the Know Your Truth, Speak Your Truth blue.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
wow.
For
Thank
Bernadine.
you. I
Uh-oh.
love it. Oh, thank you. I can't wait to rock this.
They're all
I actually,
XLs.
I actually wanted the blue too. I was like, damn, that blue's
No,
nice.
you guys
That's
are
unfortunate.
no. You guys are taking a matching pic with that on.
Right,
Oh,
Connor
oh,
said I
oh,
came here with a plan.
Of course.
This is what's happening. Do not go against it. It's a yes and situation.
Yeah, where can people follow you, man?
On Instagram, I'm at Big Boachie. That's me.
What's Big Boachie?
It's self-proclaimed. The podcast and all the GDP stuff, you can follow at Golden Deer Productions. The name of the podcast is the Golden Hours Podcast. And if you want to listen to the show, I don't know if you do, if you're on the way to work, if you want to listen to someone handsome on the mic, you can search the Golden Hours Podcast on any streaming platform. And I hope I can come back up to this show. I had a blast.
Yes.
course.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Connor, for being
Let's do
here.
a reunion episode in 6 months.
Oh, that'd be so
You
dope.
guys come on mine, I'll come on yours.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm for it. I'm
definitely.
for it.
I'm
I
for
love it. So thank you again, Connor, for being here talking about the Golden Deer Productions, what you do. Wishing you the best of luck with the Golden Hours podcast. Again, Connor's looking to do great things in the city of Boston, merging different racial backgrounds together. So my challenge to you is to educate yourself on why there are separations in order to understand why it's important to unify. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to connecting with you more.
I want to learn from you why this happened. I'm not going to read in books.